Welcome to the AlphaWarrior Show. We're excited to share diverse perspectives and expert insights with you. Please note that the views and information expressed by our guests are their own and do not necessarily reflect those of the AlphaWarrior Show, its management, or our partners. Each of our affiliates and sponsors and partnerships is a separate entity, and their opinions are their own. Today's content is provided for information and educational purposes and should not be taken as specific advice, whether it be financial, medical, or legal. While we strive to present accurate and useful information, we cannot guarantee its completeness or relevance to your specific situation. We provide all information as is and encourage you to consult with a professional advisor to address your specific individual needs. Your use of any information from this broadcast is entirely at your own risk. By listening further, you agree to identify and protect the AlphaWarrior Show and its associates from any claims or damages arising from your use of this broadcast content. Changes to this disclaimer may be made at any time and will be done effectively immediately upon posting or broadcasting. Thank you for tuning in, and we hope you find the episode both informative and thought-provoking. Listener discretion is advised.
Welcome to the next generation of warfare, psychological warfare. In modern conflict, the mind is a potent weapon. Discover General Michael T. Flynn's groundbreaking guide, The Citizen's Guide to Fifth Generation Warfare. Unlock tactics, strategies, and the mindset to navigate this cognitive battlefield that we all find ourselves in. Equip yourself against manipulation and emerge unscathed. Unleash your potential. Order now.
And a little slow on the draw right there as I'm doing a bunch of things behind the screen. You guys, welcome to the AlphaWarrior Show. I am your host, Alpha. It is Operation Gladio time. This is live because I already know a couple of you guys are going to ask in the chat. And I got the amazing Colonel with me tonight. Listen, you guys, some, history happened this weekend and not in the positive way. And we're going to talk about that. So I think everybody knows what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the assassination attempt on President Trump's life. And we're also going to talk about some historical events that may bring relevance to this and kind of explain, is this something new? Is it the same players? Maybe what can we even expect next? But before we do that, let me get to our sponsors. And first on deck, you guys, Goldco, alphalikesgold.com. Listen, be prepared. It's easy. It's fast. The rich are buying gold. The rich are buying silver. If they're doing it, you might as well ask yourself why, you guys. Criminal tax hikes, hyperinflation, a full-blown recession. It's just part of the grand plan, right? Well, billions of dollars Biden keeps sending to the corrupt Ukraine and other countries. I think you know what I'm talking about. The trillions in new taxes that he wants to shove down your throat. The electronic banking system crash resetting everybody to the big donut. That's right, a zero. Checking accounts, saving accounts, 401ks, IRAs, all of it, zero. But you don't have to be a victim, you guys. Time is something that's not on our side. Protect your money and get up to $10,000 in free silver to do it when you call my partners at Goldco. Goldco's help protect over $2 billion in gold and silver for people like you and me. They're offering you up to $10,000 in bonus silver when you open up a qualified IRA account just for being a supporter of this podcast. So whether you want to protect 50 grand or $500,000 or gazillion dollars, this is your opportunity to protect yourself from our out of control, very, very corrupt government. Just visit alphalikesgold.com. And then our next commercial, and then we're commercial free to the end of this broadcast, you guys. We'll see you in just under a minute.
Science proves that a healthy immune system is the body's first defense against the smallest of ailments to the most catastrophic. Coriolus versicolor is the most sought-after, all-natural supplement for both humans and pets to help boost the immune system. There are over 400 studies worldwide on its effectiveness in humans, including Sloan Kettering Cancer Center, MD Anderson Cancer Center, and now from the University of Pennsylvania School of Veterinary Medicine. Together, we can help reverse this terrible tide now plaguing your loved ones and give them the immune-boosting supplements that they need.
Those links are down in the description, you guys. Support the people that support this broadcast. Before I bring the Colonel up, I want to give a disclaimer. And Colonel may agree with me on a lot of this stuff, but I need to make sure I not only protect the Colonel because she is my guest, but she's also my friend. So the views and things you hear tonight from me and my voice represent me and my voice. They don't represent the Colonel. They don't represent any of my affiliates. I know it was in the disclaimer at the beginning, but I just want to make sure you understand you guys are going to hear a very honest opinion from me. And I'm going to tell you, some of you guys are not going to like it. And that's okay. Because I think you're not here because you always agree with me. You're here because you know I don't lie to you. And hopefully that keeps you coming back. So with that, let me bring the woman you guys really want to hear from. Colonel, how are you doing, ma'am?
Nobody wants to hear your opinion. No, I'm just teasing.
I'll tell you what, there's quite a few that share that opinion right now. I'll tell you what, Colonel. There's thousands of people that listen to this, and then there's tens of thousands, tens of thousands that listen to this. And there's always this responsibility that I take on me. I know, listen, let's be honest. There's people that do podcasts because it's strictly monetary. There's people that do podcasts because there's an ego they got to inflate. And yeah, that stuff's important. Yeah, that stuff matters. But for me, it's like, we got a country to save. Like, it doesn't matter how much money we make. Like, if we lose, it's all gone. Like, all of it. So for me, Colonel, there's no room to tell people what they want to hear. Like, you got to tell them the truth. And they either like it and say, okay, what do we do with it? Or they say, you know what? You're pissing on my hopium, and I'm going to go over there because that guy makes me feel better. But that's how we got here in the first place, Colonel. So please, I'll give it to you.
Well, that's kind of my whole deal. When you first approached me about doing these shows, that's kind of my comment to you. There are shows I will not go on because of what you just said. I can't afford to dilute the importance of the message that I have and the information that I have by getting sidelined into people that have some information that I know to be not true. So they may have a very large audience, and I would love to have their audience exposed to Operation Gladio, but I can't be affiliated with those audiences if it gravitates to people who can't even discern the truth. So I'm very picky about where I take the material that we have accumulated for exactly that reason. We don't make any money. We don't have any advertisers, whatever a small amount on Rumble or on X that trickles in. I share with my researchers, but it has absolutely zero to do with the money for us. I don't have to make a living from this. I would love that if they could, but I came across this information, and how relevant, Alpha. How, what would, I mean, just for you and I, and for your audience and my audience, the difference between this happening with the last 4 months of preparation of Operation Gladio and how assassinations work for us and our audience, it was like you almost expected, based on everything that I have presented, for this to happen. And just to zoom out for a minute before we focus in on the details, when you look at the international syndicate and their goals of one world government, domination of all resources, monopolization of every NGO to coordinate the enslavement of people worldwide, and you look at the one man standing between it and us, Donald J. Trump, there's no way, if they took out Lumumba, they took out Allende, they took out Mossadegh, they took out 80 coups and counting. There's no way that this was not going to happen now or once he's elected. They did 4 soft coups on him when he was in office before. So there was no way this wasn't going to happen. So I think we're in a very unique situation in order to put the entire thing in context. I know a lot of people's done a lot of work over the last few days, and it's actually amazing to watch, because if you go back to the JFK assassination, the RFK assassination, there were very few people that spoke out immediately as to the facts on the ground, and it got lost because no one controlled any media. So the Mockingbird media, the CIA, massive cover-up, congressional testimony committees that were corrupted and covered it up, blah, blah, blah. That can't happen now, thanks to Elon Musk and X and Truth Social, which, who did that one? Oh, Trump. And so there's no way they can monopolize and compromise the information now. And so we're playing a completely different game, and it's actually kind of amazing that we've spent the last 4 months prepping everybody for this.
Prepping everybody for this. Let me start there, Colonel. Like, it's been a rough couple days, and you know this even more than I do, because of the rank that you served in the military. You were in charge of a lot more people than me. But even for the little bit that I was in charge of, the responsibility was still the same in my head and in my heart. And you just said it, prepping for this. And what I've seen the last few days, I've seen things that have really made me be like, damn, like, that's impressive. But I've also seen a lot of, have you not been listening? Like, have you not been listening? And when you come from a role of leadership in the military and in law enforcement, at least to me, I think I was trained right. And you see people that aren't getting it, instead of pointing the finger that way, it's, how did I fail them? How did I not have them prepped for this? Where did I not meet the mark so they could see what's going on right now? How did I fail my audience? That's my responsibility with the tens of thousands of people that'll watch this.
Right.
And there's just no other way about it. The quarterback of the football team gets to hold the trophy when they win the Super Bowl. The quarterback of the football team is going to get blamed when they lose, no matter if the receivers are the ones that, push the, volleyball the ball up in the air or whatever the case. Right. And that's our role here, and that's okay. So, I kind of made a personal decision the last few days that, you know what, I'm just gonna have to be a little bit more raw and unfiltered with things that get addressed. And that's gonna hurt some feelings, but it's also the time where we're gonna separate the wheat from the chaff. Those people that still are hanging on to their emotions, maybe it's just not the time for them now. Maybe it will be later. But you know, I'm not gonna push forward at the speed of the lowest common denominator. There are leaders and there are doers and there are pushers in this audience. And I need to make sure that I'm delivering them what they need to help save this country. And so with that, there was a letter that I wrote. And I wrote it on, let's see, what's today? Wednesday. So he announced his VP yesterday? No, Monday. He announced his VP Monday. So finished it up Monday night. And I just sat there right on the screen in front of me. And I read it, and I read it, and I read it. And my finger was just this close. Now, here's some divine intervention, just maybe. For all you that don't know, I almost died Monday night, honestly. So I'm working, and it's like, the house is kind of warm. Let me go check on this. And so I noticed that the AC was at a warm temperature. So I said, let me lower it a couple degrees. So I lowered a couple degrees, and temperature's still going in the wrong direction. So I'm like, all right, let me go check the actual AC out. We're going to get into the content tonight, you guys. I'm just trying to set the mood of where I've been. So please just roll with me here. So I go, I see the AC fan is not turning. So I'm like, all right, maybe the breaker tripped, because last time the guys had to come out and work on it. That's what it was. So I lift the panel up. I have my cell phone light, right? And I see the switch. I'm like, oh yeah, it's tripped. So I go, and my dad always told me, never pinch the breaker and go like this. Always do a little karate chop. That's his thing, because he's worked on that. He's seen bad stuff. So I do it, and as I flick that breaker, the panel pops and explodes. I jump back. I might be old, but I moved like I was 20 again, right? I jump back. The thing arcs, catches fire, and so I'm like, holy smokes. So I run inside to grab the fire extinguisher. This is why you guys should always have one. I'm going to come back outside to address it, so the fire doesn't get out of control. But by the time I came back, it had kind of put itself out. Well, anyways, I will upload the video of this because my neighbor across the street got it on surveillance. So you guys will laugh. But here's the interesting thing. You see that arc jump out probably 2 to 3 feet, and it's pretty thick. And because you have the major service disconnect and the AC are the two biggest breakers on that panel. And so when the guy came the next day and he worked on it, and he showed it, it blew that little circuit breaker. I mean, it literally looked like a little explosive. As a matter of fact, one of my buddies go, you think the deep state tried to take you out? I said, oh, no, I don't think so. Not that important just yet. But nonetheless, I was just like, wow. But I had no power. So now I couldn't hit send because I couldn't even power up my computer. So I was like, you know what? I get to sleep on this tonight.
Make us stew on that a little bit.
Let me sleep on this tonight. Really make sure, because I know what's going to happen when I hit send. So the next day, I just power's on. They fix it. I hit send. Those that have read it, I'll link it down if you guys want to read it. I'm not going to read the letter tonight, but I say all this to say this, Colonel. I feel like we're in the 2-minute warning of the fourth quarter, and we got to get into this. And I feel like everything you've been training us on, everything you've been teaching us on, Operation Gladio, the players, the maneuvers, how they do it's because of this. It's not for it'll play into after Trump wins, yes. But it's for this. It's getting us to that win. It's right now. We just saw this Saturday Operation Gladio in real time.
Yes, we did.
So,
okay,
how we starting?
Let me be your commanding officer for 5 seconds.
Let's roll.
When one of the very first things when we did orientation into any unit that I was the commander of, I made sure people understood, having been prior service myself, my approach to leadership is, I don't know what you know. If I knew your job, I wouldn't need you. Everybody has a role in this organization. You have a responsibility to tell me during a discussion phase at a staff meeting what it is that you know that's relevant to the decisions that need to be made for our organization to operate in a most effective and efficient way. What's best for the people in this organization? That discussion stops at the time I make a decision, because at that point, we're marching forward. I'm not interested at that point in renegotiating a decision that I've already made. That does not mean that you don't have input into shaping future decisions. It means that I'm not going to justify my decision to you. That is not my role, and your role is not to question my decisions, because you're not in my job. You don't know what I know. And that's what I think is missing when somebody tries to deny you your opinion on a particular matter. Just because we're marching forward does not mean that we agree with every single thing Trump does or he decides. And we collectively have a responsibility, if we feel like we have a different opinion, to voice that different opinion. That doesn't mean we're not going to support him as he marches forward. We will, but that also doesn't mean that I'm in a cult and I have to agree with everything he does and do the holy worship thing, because that's not me. And that is not what President Trump wants either. He would not be opening the MAGA movement to the non-typical but everyday American that have never been allowed in any movement because they have been deemed unworthy from the Matt Walshes that gatekeep the Connie bullshit. So I'm not interested in the gatekeepers. I'm not interested in the people that are standing at the church doors telling me I can't come in. And that's what I think has thwarted the unity that President Trump is trying to bring about. We don't know what he knows, but we also have an obligation to the people that we're responsible for, your audience and my audience, to let them know what our opinion is based on our experiences, because our experiences are different and we're going to form different opinions. So I, as I told you in public, congratulated you on standing your ground, voicing your opinion, because we all have to learn how to do that. And we do it respectfully. We do that and it comes from our heart. But again, we have an obligation to do that. That's what the people that have gravitated to our audiences expect from us. And we're not going to be kowtowed by someone who wants to try to beat us down and tell us we don't have an opinion just because it happens to be different from theirs.
I agree. And then I'll just say this, we'll get to the Rumble rant and we'll get into unfolding this. So what I'll say is, there's a very famous saying, trust the plan. I think it's powerful. I think it's such a powerful thing. But I also think that sometimes people misinterpret it, and I think if people realize you're the plan, you'd probably approach it a little bit different. Like, we are part of the plan. And so what I always tell people is, I truly believe in my heart there are clandestine operations taking place behind the curtain, things that I'll never be privy to, and I'm okay with that. But I also know that in the brilliance of those minds that are planning that stuff, they're also doing it with the forethought and active understanding of how people like me are going to respond to that, mm-hmm. and what we're going to do when those things happen that we don't know about. So I think when they plan these clandestine operations, they plan them around the fact that these good people should respond like this.
So I'm not going to call them clandestine plans, because that to me has a negative connotation to them. But I am going to say that I think they're, from a planning perspective, you and I know from the military that no plan lasts within 24 hours of engagement, right? So I believe that my definition of a plan is probably very different than anyone else's. You have an overarching set of objectives that you're going to accomplish. But at every step of the engagement, the enemy gets a vote. And that does not mean that you're not going to achieve your overall objectives, both at the tactical and strategic level, the operational level. We're going to achieve our objectives. But the enemy gets a vote with every one of those decisions. And the planned way of doing business may have been game theoried out as you go along, but there are adjustments every night. That's what you do at 10 o'clock. You get back into the command tent. You go over everything that happened today. You make those adjustments and you go back out the next day and you fight afresh. So no plan lasts the moment of engagement in its entirety. But good planners, good commanders make the adjustment as you're moving forward so that the overall objectives gets accomplished at the end of the day. And our objectives, unlike the objectives that our military has been working with for the last 30 years, is we're going to win this damn thing. We are not going to protect poppy fields anymore.
You know, there was it's a compliment, so I don't think he'll mind saying my name, and who knows what his rank is now, but at the time when he was leading, he was a major. Funny thing is, his name was Major, or his rank was Major, his name was Minor, so Major Minor. Can't write this shit sometimes. But I remember there was something about it, like, at least from our perspective as young Marines, we're like, man, this guy is medal chasing and he's doing it at the risk of our lives. Which, we have amazing stories to share for it. But at the time, it was like, dude, cut us a break here just a little bit. But the other thing is now hindsight, I'm older, I'm mature, a little bit more mature. don't get too carried away, everybody, and I've done my own operational planning. And I'm like, if you plan something too complex, it's easier to fall apart if you get too far ahead of yourself. And one thing that this man was phenomenal at is there was things that happened that I'm like, we didn't know. Like, there's no way he could have been prepared for that. But the way he rolled with it, you would have thought it was part of the plan.
Correct.
And it was just one of those things that the man was so good that you couldn't tell the difference between him ad-libbing and his preparation. It was just impressive.
And I think that's the biggest asset Trump has.
I agree. So here we go, you guys. Breadmaker 62, set it off, setting the bar, $100 Rumble Rat. Much love, many prayers, and thanks to you both. Semper Fortis, and continued prayers for America and our president, absolutely, and especially for Corey, because even though we did have the miracle of Trump surviving, we had 2 Americans that were critically injured. They're in stable condition now, but we did have an American that lost his life, and he was a first responder. So everybody remember Corey Comatori, if I'm saying his last name correctly. It probably didn't. But Colonel, where do you want to start? We're going to start with history. Do you want to get into the logistics of what happened? I'll lead the way. I'm ready to roll with you.
Okay, so I do think that we have to back up just a second and kind of set the stage for this, which we kind of did, but let's roll into this. If we look back over history and you have the international syndicate and their monopoly of resources and their goal of enslaving all of us, you have one man standing in the middle of that. So international syndicate, the world, and Trump. And that seems like an oversimplification, but I don't believe it is. And with that, I think that you realize that if they're going to take out all of the other people that were just standing between their country and the international syndicate, the bigger target, the bigger threat to them is the guy that can rally the entire world against them, and that's President Trump. And so to me, not that I ever wanted to wish ill on anyone, the more research I did into Operation Gladio, the more convinced I was. And I never voiced that to the public. I certainly have to people in my personal life, that every day it didn't happen, I said a prayer of thanks. But I was absolutely convinced it was going to happen. Because again, if you look back at some of the very simple ones, Mossadegh in Iran, we talked about, his government was overthrown. He was imprisoned for his life, and because he went peacefully. They chased him out of his house, but he arrested him. He was under house arrest for the rest of his life in Iran. And that was a CIA coup. And the only thing that man did was nationalize their petroleum. He took the contract away from BP and said that because they were basically getting 14 cents on every dollar. And the UK, the city of London, was getting the other 86 cents on every dollar of oil that left Iran. And the people were poor. They had no health care. They had no education, blah, blah, blah. Fast forward, go to Chile. You've got Allende. He nationalized the copper mine. He nationalized their telephone company, and was going to throw basically PepsiCo out because they were a CIA front, which will come back to the conversation in a minute. So by telling the United States that we are going to own our own telephone company and you're not going to spy on us by owning our telephone company, and by saying that we want more of the wealth of our copper mine than what you have currently been giving us, and we are going to pay you to get you out of here, that was unacceptable to the international syndicate. So they killed him. And so you're talking this little mine, you're talking this little telephone company, you're talking about a smaller but important oil field in Iran compared to some of the others that they found. They took every one of those leaders out. They took leaders out in Nicaragua for a banana farm. So you have Trump, who has the entire Saudi, his little tour of everybody, right? He's breaking out peace in the Middle East, which does away with their war machine. He's pulling the shit out of Afghanistan. He's like bigger than shit Superman out there going, dude, back up. And as a result of that, you can see that he just kept pushing forward and pushing forward. And if they're going to do it for this little acorn over here or this little acorn, they're going to do it for the entire oak tree, right? Because that's what we're talking now. So the looking at the setup for it, you have to go back and look at some of the players. And I think that's where we need to start. So let's start with the Secret Service director. There's some confusion about what her background is, because I noticed some people are going, were mistakenly believing that she had spent a large amount of time at PepsiCo. She had not. As a matter of fact, about the only time she spent at PepsiCo was Donald Trump's tenure in the White House. She was made an SES in 2016 in the Atlanta office of the Secret Service. So she worked prior to her going to PepsiCo, and I think it was early in 2019 when she actually left, may have been late 2018, and went to PepsiCo. She had only been an SES for a very small amount of time. she had been in the Secret Service for 27 years. So she wasn't new. Do you have my thread?
Yeah, here, I can bring that up too. Let me grab it.
Okay. Yeah. So 27 years Secret Service. She leaves during Trump administration. And where does she go? She goes to PepsiCo. Well, I mentioned PepsiCo a few minutes ago. Many people don't realize that PepsiCo has a history of working with the CIA and specifically coupping Allende in Chile. They actually paid for part of the CIA operation to murder, assassinate a foreign head of state. Because basically they were going to be kicked out of Chile because Allende felt like the PepsiCo products were not nutritionally sound and was poisoning the people in Chile. So they were worried about market share and worked with the president of ITT and the Freeport Mining, which happens to be headquartered in New Orleans, where all of the mafia that murdered JFK originated from. But, you know, that's a whole nother story. But so why? And another really weird thing about the Secret Service director is during the time that she was gone. So from a personnel perspective, if you're civil service and you leave government, you retire at 27 years, which no one does. And just so that y'all know, the CIA makes a habit of moving people or embedding them in other civilian companies, pretending that they've quote unquote retired. But they kind of just like are detailed there and hang out there and then bring them back when they want to. So she was paid a civilian bonus during the time that she was detailed to PepsiCo. Now, that's physically not possible in the personnel system unless you're still employed as a civil service. The computer system would not allow you to get a bonus from the U.S. military or the U.S. civil service unless you're an employee, not a retiree. Because once you're a retiree, all of your personnel stuff goes away and you start drawing your retirement, which is a completely different, even the different pay office. You're not paid at your local pay office anymore. You're paid from the retiree area through your IRA and that in your 401k as a civilian. And
Real quick, Colonel,
hers as well, but
the one regarding Kimberly's, that's from yesterday, right? That's the thread you're talking about?
Yes.
Okay, because I'm looking for it. You've been working because there's a lot, you got a lot of posts.
Yeah, I have it. I can find it for you. It should be under, if you go to my pinned post if you click on the very pinned post, there's like a thread reader that Bridget has all of my threads.
Makes it easier.
Yeah, she's very good. So I don't believe she was ever actually retired. I think she was moved out, maybe for protection, or if you look at the job she had, global security. So what's that say? That gives her the plausible deniability to move all over the world and do whatever she wants undercover. Right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So she can pretend like she's working for PepsiCo and go do whatever she needs to do, have meetings with whoever she needs to have meetings with, collude behind Trump's back, blah, blah, blah. So then as soon as Joe Biden gets back in office or gets into office, she comes back as the director of the Secret Service. And, you know, obviously is in charge of the Trump detail. So other setting the stage that needs to be talked about is the fact that you have, after Trump decides he's going to Butler, Pennsylvania, you have the Kamala Harris and Joe Biden make arrangements to be co-located in Pennsylvania in close proximity right? So they use their presence to divert assets from Trump's Secret Service over to Jill Biden and Kamala Harris. That's also been reported. It was also reported that several of the people that were in direct proximity to Trump at the event were wearing U.S. Marshal pins and not Secret Service identification. So there's another layer there. But I do want to talk, and you and I both can talk about this from our own unique experience about, and I had dinner with a general who was part of this process for the White House in a former life the other night. I want to talk about advon teams. So there are always advanced teams that at least a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks in advance goes to the venue, usually immediately upon deciding that they're going to have an event, they go. And the event is looked at in 3D. It's looked at dimensionally this way and dimensionally this way. So at no time when you have a job of protecting a former president, presidential candidate, would you ever see the high ground ever? And the very first thing they did in actuality was cede the high ground to someone else. So that's like you and I going into Afghanistan and saying, we're going to operate down here in this valley and leave the mountaintop to the enemy. You do that when? Never.
Never.
So right away, when an advon team would have gotten to that farm center, fairground, you would have scoped the entire process. Here's where, and you like literally doodle out here's where the stage is going to be. Here's where the people are going to be. Here's where the sentries are going to be. Here's where the perimeter is going to be. Here's where the counter snipers are going to be. Here's where the spotters are going to be. And at no time during your doodling all of this stuff out and you sketching the whole thing, and you also meet with all of the locals and you decide who's taking what. You've got the perimeter. You've got the immediate security. You've got the counter sniper job. You've got this perimeter building over here. Everybody gets assigned a task. You utilize all of the resources. Nothing is left unmanned or open. So you have to assume that plan was done. You also have to assume when that plan was not carried out, that it was not carried out intentionally because it's in writing.
Yep.
So there were supposed to be people on the high ground. They would never have it not that way. That was intentionally left open. There were people that were assigned that building. There were people we now know inside of that building. Why would you be inside when you're supposed to be guarding the perimeter of it? Unless you're shooting from inside the building, you would have no reason to be inside the building. And oh, by the way, it's a metal building. I have a metal pole barn out here. When my husband was putting the irrigation system to water my big staghorns hanging off the side of my pole barn, and when he's rolling around on the top of that thing, it sounds like thunder on the inside. There's no way somebody's belly crawling on a metal roof and someone's on the inside of a warehouse with no insulation and you don't know the guy's on the metal roof. It just doesn't happen.
I agree completely.
So we've got the building is an issue. The water tower is an issue. The perimeter is an issue. And that's even before we get there. This is all happening before we've ever even arrived at the event. People need to understand multiple visits to the location, multiple meetings, Zoom calls with the officials, anything that changes up as it as you get closer to the event, you're going to have at least 2 to 3 meetings the week of the event, going over you guys got staffing, everything's okay. So there's that.
Well, here's what I'll supplement to the stuff that you laid out there, because you did a phenomenal job of it. And for those that don't know, if you're new to the show, I did law enforcement for a decade and a half. So I had a chance to do it for President Obama. I had a chance to do it for President Trump, but also had a chance to do it on the civilian side as a contractor for President Obama. All my experience is here in California, but it's still pretty consistent through, most of
It's the
the
same
bigger
way
areas.
everywhere.
That's where I'm going. So the second this came out, my immediate issue was a lot of people were saying what Bongino was saying, and I understand why. They're saying this is a failure. This is a failure. And I said, here's my issue with using the word failure. That means that you planned it out and it failed to happen the way you planned it out. There was a failure in the planning. I said there's so many, let me take a step back real quick. When these operational plans happen that the colonel's telling us about right now, there are built-in redundancies that we on the law enforcement side, or now we're just being stupid. It's like, that's how many you have redundancies for those redundancies, You're talking at a minimum 4 levels of redundancies. And yes, because you're trying to protect your VIP. Yes, because you're trying to protect the civilians. But what the cities will never admit, it's because of liability. They want to make sure that if there's some catastrophic thing that happens, that they can't get sued because they look, we had backups to the backups to the backups. We did our due diligence. So I said, the other thing, because exactly what you said, the early arrival teams, the constant meetings, the surveillance, especially with an event like this, when you go to take your aerial photographs for the operation, this is not one of those operations where you're going to be like, hey, dude, just do me a favor, just go grab something off Google Maps. We can look at it. No, you want real-time photos because you want to know if there's construction going on. You want to know if there's a new attachment to that building. You want real-time photos when you do this stuff. And when you put this together, you have overlapping sectors of fire. So even though you have, I'm sure they probably had somewhere between like maybe 4 and 6 counter sniper teams, you're going to have their coverages overlapping. And specifically because one team may have a blind spot. So you need to make sure there's another team that can cover the blind spot. But in addition to the sniper teams, you have a ton of law enforcement on the ground. You have your Secret Service, you have your local agency, you have the local sheriff's department, you have allied agencies, and then you're going to have your state agencies because they're going to be handling a lot of the traffic and the roadways. And then you still have your contracting private security that's there. Like there's a lot, and not including the medical people and all that stuff. Like you have a lot of cops. Like there's a lot of cops that are there. And then there's more that are not in uniform. And we know the reasons of that. And so when you have these guys, like the first thing that I called BS on with the information officer is when they said, well, that building was outside the scope of the Secret Service's area. I said, bullshit. When you look at it from an aerial shot, there's 2 things that immediately catch your eye. That set of buildings and that water tower. So there's no way it's going to be out of your area responsibility. And the proof is, what was the sniper team covering that was there? That building.
All right. So stop right there. Just 1 second. What is a normal sniper acceptable downrange shot? 500 to 1,000 foot is something that's doable. And the general said specifically this: whatever is doable is coverable.
I agree.
So
I've no disagreement.
So we're at dinner, and he's just laying them off one after another. 15 things. I didn't write them all down. I counted them on my fingers as he was saying them. 15 things. A failure is 1, maybe 2 for professional people that do this for a living. Not 15 things. If 15 things are failures, that's the plan. It no longer is statistically possible that they're all failures.
So I got my vindication I think it might have been last night or this morning because the last couple of days just blend like they always do. But the day that this happened, hours within having the conversations, I go, what we're all going to hear is what happened here was intentional and purposely. I go, the coverage of that building, the man coverage could have been local law enforcement. But here's the thing. Every operation plan we put together, every agency provides an operation plan. Guess who it's given to? Secret Service.
Yes, because they're responsible for the entire plan.
Exactly. So if you do something they don't like, they're going to address it. If there's an area that's not covered, they're going to address it with you. And then you're going to update the operational plan till you get a final one.
So it's like having a pie and you put this piece of the pie together. The state guy puts this piece of the pie. And before you're even putting those pieces, the Secret Service Avon team gave you your area of responsibility, that building, this stand, that water tower. Then you give them back the plan on how you're covering it.
And the best part is
they're responsible coming and going.
And what everybody does, and the reason I know everybody does it is because I did it. You compensate for everything. So even though you have a team here, you make sure that these two teams' area of operations bleed into each other.
Correct.
And the reason you do that is because in these events, you still have normal dumb shit that happens. Well, I shouldn't say dumb shit.
No, but you do. Yes, you do. The drive-by, the guy that has,
people go down as heat casualties. Somebody can't find their car. There's a vehicle theft. Like there's things where a team can get called off. And that's the reason you have this redundancy of cops. So it doesn't matter. It doesn't affect you. Correct. So when I saw this, I said, this is what you guys are going to hear. If they ever do start telling us the truth, you're going to see that they made deliberate decisions to not cover things. That's the only way this happens. That somebody made a deliberate decision. It's in the operation planning. It was covered at briefing, and everybody understands that that's just not happening. And then we ended up hearing it when they came out with some stupid excuse about a sloped roof. And
so I got to do this. I did this at dinner tonight. I went to dinner with Brian Cates, and we're having this conversation. All right. So here's my sloped roof. Because I want everybody to realize, and I want to ridicule how stupid these people think you are. All right. So here's my sloped roof, right? Now, on the sloped roof, let me get it really sloped here like it really was, which is almost flat, not sloped. But okay, so here's my roof. And here's how like almost flat it is. Now the guy comes up, he comes up the side of the little breezeway between this building and this building. He comes up the back here, like, over here by where the water tower is, where you would have seen him in complete full view had anybody been on the water tower. He comes up, gets on the breezeway, comes over to the roof, and he starts belly crawling with his gun up the roof, right? So now his head's going to be right here on the roof line. At some point, he not only has to get his head above the roof line so that his eyes can see Trump, he's got to get his gun up parallel, pointing down a little bit with his body up high enough, because now he's higher than Trump, with his body up high enough to get his eye on the scope, shooting down at Trump's head. So at what point does his head pop up here for him to get his eyes without his gun on Trump, where this secret or the counter sniper is over here behind Trump, looking right at him, right? So at some point, his whole head, at least eyes above, is above the ridgeline. Then, looking at him in his eyes is the sniper. He pulls his gun around, and at that close range, 150, and I've dropped a deer at 157, so I know what this looks like in a scope. And I mean, I got him dead in the heart. All right. So if I can make that shot, and I'm only a marksman with a handgun, not a rifle, and I made the shot at 157 yards. All right. So his eyes, you can see them. You could have seen the nose hairs in his nose at this side. All right. So he pulls his gun around, and at some point, the barrel of the gun crests the ridge. Can you not see it? His head's up there. Can you not see his head and the barrel? No. Are we going to shoot? No. All right. So now he brings the butt end of his barrel up high enough to get it angled down at Trump's head. Where is his head? At the end of the scope. Now his whole freaking head and gun is above the ridge line before he's ever even pulled the trigger the first time. Now, you and I know the rules of engagement. It's threat.
Imminent threat.
The barrel of a gun is a threat as soon as the barrel crested this, not after it gets up and he gets his body up and he gets his eye on the scope and he starts pulling the trigger. The minute the barrel crests the ridge, he's a threat.
100%.
No.
100.
So, like I said, 15 things happen that any one of those 15 things would have never happened. And now this was like number 12 in the whole line of what should not have happened. This is like number 12, right? And the fact that he delayed the taking the guy out. So I want everybody to understand how important that is and the logistics of that supposed kid. Now, if you can pull up one of those pictures, any one of those pictures of the actual farm and bring it up on the screen.
Grab this.
I think there's one.
I'll bring this one up. You tell me if you like this one. If not, I have another one I can bring up as well.
Yeah. Let me get my glasses on.
There's also, let me see what this
Okay.
is.
Yeah, this one's the important one because the star down at the bottom is the water tower. And if you were to go southeast from the dot, okay, so you see where Trump is, and you see the white building where the other star is, where the shooter was. All right, so do you see the, if you go just southeast, that little breezeway that connects it to the next building?
Yep.
Yeah, right there. That is where this kid supposedly bought a ladder, carried it across the ground with a gun strapped to his back, put the ladder up against that breezeway and climbed up to that roof. Now, do you believe? And oh, by the way, Liza was telling me earlier that his van, a white van that he was driving with his ladder in it, not a 5-foot ladder, like a 10-foot ladder. How did he know to get a 10-foot ladder? How did he know what the size of that breezeway was? Why didn't he have a 5-foot ladder? Why did he have a ladder at all? Who told him to bring a ladder?
At a minimum.
Huh?
I'll say at a minimum, that shows that he was there days earlier and reconned it.
Or somebody was.
But here's the other thing too, and I've been trying to figure this out, but no one's been able to tell me. How many days in advance did they have the stage set up? Was it that morning? Was it the prior day? And have they had presidential rallies at this place before? And the reason I ask that is even if this guy's doing recon, he can go there a week earlier, but unless he knows how they're going to set it up,
Alpha, this guy had nothing to do with it other than he's the Oswald.
Oh, no, I agree.
Yeah.
But these are the questions I
Yeah,
want to
he's an
present,
Oswald.
so normies can be like, well, yeah, that's true. So then
Yeah,
there
he's an
has to be more to
Oswald.
this.
He didn't do any of that stuff. Someone who had access to the Advon plan for the fairgrounds knew that a 10-foot ladder was required in order to get up on that breezeway and get up where that guy was. This kid knew none of that. All of this stuff was there. He didn't carry no 10-foot ladder across 10 miles from where the van was parked. That van was parked there for whatever reason. That ladder was already there. He's not carrying the ladder across the field. Sorry, he's just not. So but I want to talk about what they're telling us just to show you how ignorant they think we are. So supposedly he parked a van 10 miles away. He carried, and those ladders are not light, by the way. You saw the picture of it. It's like a fiberglass ladder. They're not light. So he carries this 10-foot ladder and his gun strapped behind his around his back to this building, around the building to the backside. Gets up there and does his belly crawl across there. So who told him how big the ladder needed to be? Like you said, who told him that that was going to be the best vantage point? This is how you know this was an inside job. Somebody knew that he needed to be placed right there because whoever the real shooter was going to be is either right behind him or right below him. And now we find out that there was actually a sniper team in that building. What sniper team was in that building? Was that the real sniper team that actually took the shot at Trump? And then they shoot this guy in order to make everybody believe that he's the lone gunman? I don't know the answer to that, but that sounds much more plausible to me than anything else. So, yeah. Does this one have, let me get my glasses back on. Yeah, because this one shows where the other people that were killed. So you've got the other guy right there that was shot, where it looks like the one that misses Trump's or clips his ear kills that guy. And then you have the other guy. Now, one of the other things I think was really important is, did you hear the story of, oh, that one has the tractors in it too. Did you hear the story about the cops, the motorcycle cops getting in trouble?
Yes, I did. I did hear that.
And did you hear that they got shot with, injured with shrapnel?
I did not hear that part, no.
Yeah, so supposedly they were standing next to the fire chief that got killed. And they were hit with shrapnel. Now, if you look at those stands, those are metal stands. So if they were standing in that vicinity, they would have been hit by anything that embedded itself, any bullet that embedded itself into the metal would have generated shrapnel. Also, Liza pointed out that if we have one of the patterns in Operation Gladio is that you target women and children. That fire chief's story is that he protected his daughter. So his daughter was in the line of fire, not him. He took the bullet for his daughter. And that's consistent with Operation Gladio, where they target women and children in the audience. So I just wanted to point that out.
I agree. So, I've been looking at this from, just nonstop the last couple of days. Everybody's been sending me different videos, to kind of get my analysis on these things and my perspective of it. So I'll address the water tower because that's the one that people ask about the most. It is the high ground. So I am 110% on board with the Colonel. Is you have to have control of that. Now, if it's me and it's a good structure and I got solid dudes, they're going up to the tower. At a minimum, it's not going to be a sniper team. It's going to be a spotter team at a minimum.
Correct.
Now, in the event, let's just say, there's an argument with the brass that, no, this thing's too rinky-dinky. It's too weathery. It doesn't look like our guys are going to be safe. Or if they got an egress, it's just going to take them too much time to get back down, or it's going to make them vulnerable. And you do make the decision that there's not going to be anybody on top. At a minimum, it's secured, because if you're not going to have it, nobody else is going to have it. So at a minimum, you are still going to have the bottom of that thing covered 100% of the time. And like I said, that's in the event if you choose not to take that as the high ground. And then if you don't take it as the high ground, that means you're going to have drones, you're going to have a helicopter, and you'll probably have fixed wing as well.
Where were the drones?
That's a good question, because all I've heard is that afterwards, at the end of it, people saw a drone coming in, but they think it was a civilian one.
And I'm sorry, Alpha, but did you not learn how to rappel sometime?
I absolutely did. It's freaking
So
fun as hell.
if you're on a water tower, can you not get down fairly fast?
Damn right I am.
Okay. All right.
So
I learned how to rappel, and I'm Air Force.
listen,
So I damn sure know that anybody that's doing this kind of crap knows how to rappel down from a high place.
I'm absolutely doing it. My guys are doing it. I'm just making sure people understand.
I want people to also understand these people have skills other than shooting, and they know how to get down from high places in an expeditious fashion.
I just want people to hear that. So in the event they make the excuse that this was a safety issue, that people understand, okay, well, Alpha told me that if you chose not to be up there, you still would have had it secured. So there's still no excuse when they try to come up with the excuse.
Correct. All right.
The other thing, real quick, to go back to the parking lot of the building, the glass warehouse, and them saying that there was a sniper team in there, or at a minimum there was cops in there. When I look at the setup, the aerial photo, and I'll grab that other one while I'm talking. When I look at the setup of this is so consistent with so many venues that I worked at, where you had the main place that you're looking at. Where's my little zoom in feature? So you have up here this area where the venue, this is the venue up here.
Right.
And you have, your sniper teams on these two roofs. You probably had a sniper team up here in the top center, and you probably had another sniper team that was your down right. That way you have your 360 degrees of coverage. But over here, this is a perfect staging area for law enforcement and first responders. You have the parking lot, a place to put your command posts, a place where you can bring in porta potties for your cops, a place where you can have, lunches for your cops. This is, I would suspect we're going to find out this place over here was crawling with cops. Unless
and the guy couldn't get up there with his ladder and his gun.
That's where I'm baffled. That's where I'm baffled. Because
hold on just a second, because I want you to. This is very important. That star is actually not exactly in the right place. The guy was a little farther in as far as trajectory, and where the bullet went through Trump into the stands. That line right there is a little off, because what you're going to find out is, go back to this very far building that's down here in the corner. You've got the U-shaped building, and then you've got this little one off to the side. There's a gym over here that was closed on Saturday. And there is a place where there's a flat roof that still gives you visibility over the tops of these buildings, that is in the exact same trajectory that would have been about 500 yards.
I'm with you. And this building up here, this bottom, like if you go straight up from the 80 degrees,
yes,
you can tell it's the tallest one.
Yeah.
Because you can see the shadow on this one, and you can tell all these roofs are pretty. Yep. So you can have someone that's over here.
Yes.
An actual professional.
Yes.
That can fire over here. So it looks like it's this dude because it's coming from the vicinity.
Exactly.
But this is where it's actually
the problem. That guy, when he shot, because people are on record saying that they heard different volume of fire, like it didn't all come from the same gun. So when that guy shot and he missed, the sniper had already hit the kid and taken him out. So now that sniper can't shoot again. So the 500-yard guy gets his shots off. He missed because Trump turned.
You know what? Let me bring this up because
on the roof already took the little kid out, or the 20-year-old. It's not a kid. Took the 20-year-old. Well, after you've already taken that guy out, you can't then shoot again at Trump, right? You're stuck at that point. Now, have you seen the body of the kid?
I have not.
All right.
I've seen the one where he's on his side and they're holding his head up. Okay. I've seen that one, and then I've seen one that's from like a real far distance. I've seen that. If you're getting ready to send that to me, I'm going to bring something up on the screen because I want people to understand exactly how close this came to us having a different conversation. I don't know if you've seen this yet, Colonel.
Yeah, I have.
It's 8 seconds. Yeah. So I'll hit play on this real quick. I'll let it play through twice because you probably won't catch it the first time. But take a look at this, you guys, to realize how close.
Explain what they're doing here, because it is confusing if they don't know this technology.
Yeah. So what we're looking here is you're looking at the top, which is Trump, and you're looking at like a CAD rendition of his head. And on the bottom, you're looking at the top view of his head. So you're going to see these simultaneous movements. So right here, you're looking at where this dotted line is the trajectory of the round that ultimately hits him. So what you're seeing here is this round, the direction it's firing, and you're going to see the movement of his head. So as we're looking at it right here, it looks like this round is going for, the area of the right eye, like his right eye area. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'll hit play and you're going to see how close this came to us having a completely different podcast tonight. That's how close we came to having a completely different conversation, you guys.
Right. So I sent you the picture of the kid.
Okay, let me grab that. All right, let me just email it to myself real quick.
And I got to get my slanted roof back up here. It's actually my electric bill, but we're going to pretend like it's my slanted roof.
Okay, give me 1 second. Go to my email.
It's actually on your text.
Oh yeah, I emailed it to myself though, so I could bring it up on the computer.
Okay.
All right, let me save it. All right, let me make it big so everybody can see now. Graphic image. So if you guys have issues with that, just giving you guys a heads up. It's going to pop up on the screen now. I'll let you guys know when it comes off. So here we go.
All right. So here's the roof. Here's the guy's head. Where's the bullet wound?
I'm looking, it's like I would guess the left side of his head is where I'm guessing.
That bullet wound had to have been in the back of his head. That blood is coming from the back of his head forward. There's no way he was shot in the front of his face, which is the trajectory from the snipers we were told that took him out. Where's the bullet hole in the front of his head? If he's sticking his head above this, he would be shot from the front. There's no bullet hole in the front of his head. You can tell that that blood coming from under his ear, from the back of his head, is pooling around his nose, which means he was hit in the back of his head and his head went down and the blood has come around.
It's very interesting. Does this?
He was not shot from the front.
No, he's not shot from the front. Because there's no obvious entrance wound unless it literally went right through his mouth.
Which you couldn't have got that blood on the side of his head if it had came through his mouth.
Oh. Well, the other thing too
I
is
guess you could have if it had came out the back.
but the other thing too is if it would have went through his mouth, you would have seen obvious damage to the area of his neck that's right there below his ear. Like
Yeah.
there would have been damaged air that would have been consistent with it going through his mouth.
Yes.
So that's why it's hard to see there. Yeah, I can tell by looking at both his eyes. His eyes weren't points of impacts because those are fine. And that's
Yep.
why I said it would have to have been like either the back side of his head or the left side of his head. But then the interesting thing on that one is there's no exit wound either. Unless it's on that part of his hair that's, resting against the super slope, dangerous roof.
Yeah.
That's right there.
Yeah. All right. You can take that off.
Yeah. All right. So for those that didn't want to see the ugly image, it is now off the screen. You don't have to worry about that.
All right. So let's go over a couple other things here real quick. We've got the parents. Both parents are psychological counselors, right? They're both registered Democrats. The dad owns over 10 guns. I don't know. And this is Pennsylvania. So everybody in Pennsylvania owns a gun that I know of. My ex was a Pennsylvania hunter. So I just want to make the point that you've got two registered Democrats that are both psychologists who has a son who was featured in a BlackRock advertisement 2 years ago. How's that happen? And just so that you know, by the way, those are grooming opportunities. BlackRock goes into high schools and they scout out awkward kind of nerds during these advertisement PR things for further grooming. Just putting that out there. So he ends up in a BlackRock commercial. And the dad comes home Saturday and he calls the cops to try to locate his son, because when he comes home, before this event even happened, hours before this event happened, he notices one of his guns missing. Now, if you have 10 or 12 guns, and where are they? Where are they that you notice that one of the 10 or 12 of them is missing? Okay. So he notices one's missing. And he says two things in the article. The first thing he says is he assumed his son went to the shooting range with that gun. And then he turns around in the same conversation and says that he called the cops because he was worried about his son.
Worried about what?
Well, if you thought he was going to the range.
That's what I'm saying. Why would you be worried?
Yeah. Why were you worried? You can't have it both ways. You either assumed he went to the range or you think he's going to shoot somebody. Then you call the cops. So the cops know before hours before Donald Trump takes the stage that there's a kid roaming around Butler with a gun and his dad's worried about him doing something.
And you know the kid's name. Which means they put out an APB at a minimum.
Maybe. But you still got a kid roaming around with a gun. All right. And you let Trump take the stage. And why didn't the dad call the son? Does this kid not have a cell phone? Now, I know he didn't have it on him when they shot him because he didn't have his ID on. And if he didn't have his ID, how did he buy the bullets that the article says that he bought on the way to the venue? because in Pennsylvania, you have to have an ID to buy bullets, not to vote, but to buy bullets. So this kid buys bullets with an ID that now they can't find an ID. Even in the van, the ID wasn't there. So we don't know how he got the bullets, but it said that he bought bullets. Liza's saying that someone said that there was a phone with him on the roof.
Yeah,
Okay.
there's a phone and a.
So again, all right, that makes it worse. I'm sorry, Liza. That makes it worse. They can locate him. If he has his cell phone on him, they know exactly where he's at all the time. Come on.
I have where you're going through that. I brought it up on the screen. The Pac-Man perimeter that the Secret Service claims. This was our whole area, but then we just cut out this piece here because it's, it's
Right,
outside our area of operation.
All right, that's funny.
But and this is why I say, because to the right, for those that don't know, it looks like there's a dark, like, triangular area. That's a body of water. And then below that is a little mini runway airport that's out there. So just me looking at this, that commercial area, that glass company, that parking lot, I'm telling you, I'm almost convinced that on at least one of those parking lots, and I would go with the larger one, considering all the resources, that's the staging area where all these cops are probably going to be parked.
And so go draw a line with your cursor from that higher building back there in the back through the shooter to Trump. Right there. That building to the shooter to Trump. And that building back there is the high ground.
It is.
Yeah.
So,
and all of that, like I said, if you were to go from Trump and you draw this circle, that dotted line for the 1,000-yard is going to be a little bigger than that circle, that it encompasses not only the water tower, but all of those buildings back there.
Oh, absolutely. That's
the radius of security that you have to secure in order for Trump to come out on stage.
Absolutely. All the way to the right where that body of water is, those warehouses would have been checked. These two down here with the white roofs would have been checked. Every single one of these buildings would have had dogs ran through them. You would have security ran through them. Like, all this, like, people don't understand, like, it is a huge area. Especially when I was doing this stuff on the contracting side, we would run the dogs on buildings that had nothing to do with the area that we were securing. That is
1,000-yard perimeter.
100%. 100%.
And it can be a little bit farther than that if it's all flat. But if you've got this kind of buildings, it's going to be about 1,000 yards.
Oh, I'm with you. And like I said, even the farthest part of these buildings back here is still an easy shot for a marksman, for the sniper teams. Even if you're firing from this farthest part, those guys can still easily make that shot. Easily. Like,
yeah, well, keep in mind where the guy is 150 yards. I can drop a deer right there. I dropped a deer right there. Now, if you go back from where that arrow is, zoom back out and look at the distance between, so you're talking less than 150. So you're maybe talking at the most 250.
Yeah.
It's not even double. So 250 to the back of that roof right there. And that's an easily doable shot. All right. So also, just to mention, I saw a post where someone had said there was an actual shooting competition in Butler. So if they wanted to bring in snipers, that would have been the perfect venue to do it. We already talked about the cops. Oh, and did you know that somebody, some company, did you see the post shorted like 20
on
20
on Donald Trump.
shares of Donald Trump's company on Friday.
Yes. Who knew?
And that company has major investments in all of the ADL, the Jewish League, all of that stuff.
Really?
Yes.
That
you
I did
see
not
that?
know. I did not
Yeah.
know that part.
All right, hold on. I'll find that post.
All right, while you're getting that, I want to get the ballistics part because I'm going to bring up something that's probably going to, people are going to be like, Alpha, listen, there's something ballistically that I'm seeing that's not making sense. And that's why I'm waiting for some people. There were some people that are there that are going to get real photographs from the ground to see these angles. So there's a popular video that a man made, and he did a phenomenal job on it. But I do have a little bit of a disagreement with something because the angle doesn't add up. So the video is a minute 35 seconds. Most of you have probably seen it. So I'm just going to play it in its entirety just so everybody can be on the same page. And then I'll tell you guys where I'm having an issue that I'm struggling with. And maybe you can walk me through this one too, Colonel. So let me bring this up on the stage. It's 90 seconds. So here we go. Let me just hit play.
Because you see the person over to the left falling, and you see the guy back here falling.
All right. So I'm going to pause it here because this is where my brain is having an issue. So these stands are not as high as the rooftops that the sniper teams were on. So everybody needs to understand, even at the highest point of that stand is still lower than the rooftops of those barns that are behind them. So I see the red line that John, I believe his name's John Cullen that put this video together. I see the red line that he's doing. However, it's not possible. And I know a lot of people are saying, well, it would be from the water tower, Alpha. If it was from the water tower, then that angle, the same round wouldn't have hit the other person.
Correct.
It would have been a more angled round going more straight into the bleachers.
Right.
So it's not from there. So I know when you look at these things, and that's why I want to see the photos from the people that were there that have them, because when we look at it from this perspective, especially with lenses, you don't always get the most accurate. Even though you're looking at it, it doesn't always truly represent like the angles of what the picture's showing you.
So go back to the video part. No, the beginning of it. All right. So now watch this. Stop right there. This stand, now that red building behind where these people are standing, right?
Uh-huh.
You're talking about people at the very top row that fall.
Mm-hmm.
There's nobody in front of them.
I agree.
Right? It's not
Right.
like you're hitting somebody on the third row where somebody's right in front of them. These people are standing up on the very back row. So they're a much bigger target back there. Now, fast forward to where you were just at. Okay. So that's the red building that's behind those people in the pictures.
Mm-hmm.
You see the red building back there, the very first one on the far right-hand side?
I'm tracking.
All right. So if the person that you and I believe is farther back than this kid behind them on the high building back there, you could have hit both of those people.
Yes.
From back there.
So that's where I'm going. That's where I'm at too.
Yeah.
That's where I'm at too. Because and I know people, well, what about the barn? Well, if you're in the barn, you're going to hit this stage. You're not going to hit this stage. So the barn area here is completely out of play for these two particular victims. Like everybody has to, I want to make sure everybody understands that. So what I'm thinking is if this photograph's taking kind of the curvature of like the way this looks, but when we see the ground photos from here, I'm thinking what we are going to see that it is a more linear point from, up here. Yeah, you guys can see my hand. This is that tall building that me and the colonel are talking about. that lines up exactly with what I'm thinking is the way it would hit them.
Right.
100%.
Yeah.
I'm there with you on that one.
All right. So let me also talk about this one thread that I did that talked about a doctor. There's a video that he posted about saying his phone was jammed. Now, he's a doctor on call, so he has a special phone. It is basically a protected phone so that it would still, even if the what do you call that? Like if your cell phones are saturated, he's still going to be able to use his phone, according to him. Back in 2018, it was reported that the FBI used special aircraft that masqueraded as cell phone towers. These airplane has jamming equipment on it, where they can stop the cell phone signals once they transfer them to the aircraft. So if you've got a tower over here and the aircraft comes around, they take all of the calls off that tower and then they can spy on all of them as well as stop them.
That's what I was going to tell you. Stingray, Palantir, Pegasus, all that stuff comes into play there.
So it collects data from unsuspecting citizens as it flies around and could be used as jamming. It basically switches your phone to the cell phone tower and then can do with it what it wants. The FBI not only does this, but it has taken a page out of the CIA's playbook. It is the actual CIA embedded in the FBI because they do that. The FBI used more than a dozen fake companies to conceal the air support missions, which include the Stingray technology and cell phone spying equipment. The AP identified more than 100 flights in 11 states over 30 days, tracing at least 50 aircraft to the FBI and flights over Boston, Chicago, Dallas, Houston, Minneapolis, Seattle, Phoenix, and Southern California. There were at least 115 plane flights, including 90 Cessnas, ID'd in federal budget documentation dating back to 2009. They use high-tech gear, including cameras, cell phones, spying equipment that lets the FBI conduct its own surveillance operation in the U.S. Or aid other agencies. These are not your grandpa's surveillance aircraft, said the ACLU. At least 13 fake companies were created to hide the FBI's involvement and quote unquote guarantee security of pilots. And they were called FVX Research, KQM Aviation, NBR Aviation, and PXW Services. At least that's 4 of them. So my point was, let me point out that when a federal agency is conducting operations that not only violate the Constitution, that they have to create fake companies to hide their crimes for the quote unquote safety of their pilots. Maybe you should fucking not be flying those missions. At least not in a democracy that you say you're trying to save. So I'm going to send this to you because there's 2 videos on here that I want you to play that show the day of the event and the time lapse of the flight.
All right, give me 1 second.
I sent you the Twitter post that has the 2 short videos on it.
All right, let me just send it to this computer.
And while you're doing that, I'm going to, let's see.
And for the audience, while we're doing this, since we are live right now, do us a solid. If you haven't done so already, smash that thumbs up, hit the like, share the link out, leave a comment. Help get this podcast out to tons of people. A lot of things that we're sharing, the links will be down in the description following the show. I do that with all the Operation Gladio shows that we put together. So if you guys want to share that content, please do us a solid. The content is free, so please subscribe. All right, let me go to my email, pull the first one. Okay. All right. Okay, let me bring it up on the screen. You want me to play the video one first or the one first?
Well, both of them are videos.
Oh, okay. All right, let me do this one then.
And you see Butler. And the fairground is off to the left of Butler, to the west. You see the little airplane?
I do.
Okay.
I do.
It's basically flying over the farm.
Yeah, it's doing little circles.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That one right there.
Yeah, that's the one. Doing little recon circles.
All right. And that's the aircraft. Now go to the next video.
All right. Hold on. I got to send that one to. Oh, they're both on the same link?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, this one doesn't. This one looks like it's just a picture.
Oh, okay. That was just showing you where. So you see where the farm center is off to the west of Butler?
I do.
Which is basically where the aircraft was flying around. I just had that there for a marker so you could see that it was. So what we found out about that aircraft is it was a aircraft that was typically used at the local Butler airport as like a plane that took off usually once a day for student pilots. And when we were looking at this, they kept saying, yeah, but it's just a student. It's a trainer. It's a trainer. And I said, yeah, but wouldn't that be the perfect place? This equipment's mobile. Wouldn't that be the perfect plane to put it on? Because it would be the one you weren't suspecting. It was like it belongs to a flight school. So if I've got an aircraft that's going up every day anyway, and in a flight school, they are not going to go fly over what should have been a no-fly zone.
That's what my next question for you is. Why is that?
Why was it even allowed anywhere near it? Okay, so that aircraft as a student pilot would have never been allowed to fly around the perimeter of President Trump's venue. So, but if you wanted to launch an aircraft with spy equipment on it, it would be the perfect plane to use to do that, because no one would suspect that plane taken off in the middle of the day during a presidential thing as any big deal, because it has a student pilot on it. Right?
But I agree.
Yeah.
I agree, because the only planes that would have been allowed to be present would have been like your law enforcement helicopters or your law enforcement fixed wings. That's it.
Yeah.
That's it. There's no way anybody else is going to get remotely close to that.
And there should have been a flight plan if it shows up on that radar system.
I agree with that too. There's a lot of stuff that's going to need to be requested. I want to read something. This came not too long before we went live. Let me make sure that I have it.
So let me do this while you're looking for this. I just did a kind of summary for myself. So the cops get a missing person with a gun from a concerned dad, and the son is supposedly using an ID to buy ammo. So the cops would have not only had the name of the kid that could have put out an APB for the gun stores to see, because he had to use his ID, right? So they know what his name is. And he has in the white van, when they find the white van 10 miles from the venue, it has explosives in it. Where'd he get explosives? And we're told now that it had Arizona tags on it, which makes literally no sense. He then stops to buy a ladder. He has a gun, and he takes all of that shit to a building where no one else seems to be able to get in because you've got the Keystone cops trying to get over a fence that they have to ram because nobody knows how to climb a fence anymore. And he gets all the way to the rooftop without it. And they say the cops had him in view for 30 minutes from the time they saw him initially hit the ground where people were pointing at him. And he can't be stopped. Yeah, the whole thing is weird.
Yeah, that's the one I'm looking for, and I just found it because that came from the Punch Bowl. So here it is. So I'll read this to you guys. It's short, so it won't take that long. It says, and this was posted today at 1:15 p.m. Pacific time. Breaking: Punch Bowl's reporting Senate briefing on Trump rally shooting just concluded. Top lines per two senators on the call. Number one, the shooter visited the rally site a few days in advance to scope it out. Number two, 62 minutes elapsed between the time the shooter was photographed as being suspicious and when he fired the shots. I'm going to come back to that because that's a very big deal right there. Third point, I'm sorry. 20 minutes elapsed between the time he was spotted by the snipers and when he fired the shots. And then the fourth point, FBI Director Wray said there's no foreign nexus, but no established motive as of now. Shooter used encrypted comms and had little to no social media presence. And I know we want to talk about that. So let me go first to the 62 minutes elapsed from the time that they photographed them. This is a presidential event, even though it's a former president, current presidential campaign. If they're photographing them, that means this is a person of interest, a POI, which means they're going to assign a team to follow them. The proof that they had a team that was following them is that you later see that the snipers said they had 20 minutes of eyes on him prior to him ever firing the shots. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean it was 20 minutes of him being on the roof because it spotted him while he was walking around the building. It just means they communicated to the sniper team, hey, this is what the dude looks like. You know, the whole block out on him. Sniper team confirmed, hey, we have eyes on him. So what happened? If you have a photograph because he's a person of interest, you assign a team to him, and it's to the point where you even make sure your sniper team is aware of him. I can understand the sniper team may lose visual of him because of their high point and him being there, but then that's why you still have the team that's following him on it. Who got called off? Who got called off of surveilling him? And the second the sniper team loses, you know, let's just say there wasn't a tracking team, which I completely doubt. I'm 99% positive they took a photograph, they assigned somebody to follow them. I'm 99% positive of that. You know, and probably UCs as well. But let's just say they didn't do that. If the sniper team has visual on them, and there's one of two things that they're going to say: we lost visual of him because he went behind the big red tractor, we lost visual of him because he went into the trees, or we lost visual of him because he went into the buildings. Somebody else has to pick that up. Why didn't they? Like, that's a major, major issue right there. Because this reason, both those things that I'm telling you about took place before Trump ever even stepped on the stage. So if you lost visual,
guy running around with a gun, you lose visual, and you let Trump come out on the stage.
Exactly. That's
right into the line of fire. Like it's a setup.
The guy's being reported with a gun. You have eyes on him. You see the rangefinder. You know, and that's not even touching on the fact that we're probably going to find through FOIA that there probably was an APB put out from Dad earlier that day saying there's a kid that's got these issues and he's got a gun. And then all of a sudden you have these things transpiring at the event. Like the Butler PD isn't that big. Like that's traffic everybody's going to pick up. There's a lot that's going to unfold here. But I'm telling you right now, you know, back to what you guys were saying, 15 failures. I'm sure after I hear you guys list, we can probably add a few more after the information we got from today.
Yep.
This is not a failure. This is Operation Gladio, the way
Yeah.
we've been telling you guys for the last 22 episodes. That's what this was.
So his dad also says that it was the dad or mom that Crooks was one of them said that he didn't like the candidates in 2016. One of the parents said that about their son, that he was agitated at the election about the election in 2016. If he's 20 today, that means he was 12. I don't know about you, but my 12-year-olds don't give a shit about who's running for president.
No,
Just saying.
no. And what's the little salt guy that does this? Don't forget the BlackRock video. Not alleging anything. Let me be like Crowder. I ain't saying BlackRock had anything to do with it. But did they? You know what I mean? Come after me. I don't
So the
I don't
name of
care.
that investment company is Austin Private Wealth Company that shorted DJT New York Exchange stock 12 million shares on Friday. So
There's
that go ahead.
I'll say there's deep dives that need to go into that.
Yeah, absolutely.
I want to give this thought process, and I thought it was a brilliant thought process. Comes from Dustin on X, from American Mission. Him, his wife Jen Lawrence, they're the ones from Build the Wall. Frequent spaces. If you follow me on these X spaces, I'm sure you ran into Dustin as well. But one of the things that we all realize, but Dustin actually put a further thought to it, was we saw these headlines following the shooting. Trump fell, Trump taken away after loud sounds. The media wasn't on par with what to write.
Right.
Now, what we do know is that they get their marching orders. So we know that a mass order went out for them not to use words like assassination, things like that. But the reason they weren't prepared is because the headlines that were about to immediately supposed to go out were supposed to read, President Trump just killed in an assassination at the rally.
So did you see the India newspaper?
Let me bring it up because I saw that you sent that. I was just like, fire. Colonel knows I wanted to bring this up. Give me 1 second.
And then I want to read something from Health Ranger, a post that he made on X.
I'm going to send this to Dustin too, because this completely validates what he was saying. Look at this up on the screen now.
Yeah, that was already preset in India.
There you guys go. Let me tell you what my speculation is of what I think the intentions of this was supposed to be. This was supposed to be the murder and assassination of President Trump. It was going to be, they were going to highlight the AR rifle the way they're doing now. Why? Because you get to target the rifles too. This was going to make some crazy MAGA extremists seek revenge and then do the same thing right back to Biden with the same style of rifle, some AR style rifle. And the narrative was going to be set. Both the characters that they don't want in the campaign were going to be removed. They were going to be able to attack the assault rifles, and this was going to be the breaking of chaos. And this was that's what they wanted to happen. And by divine intervention and, a quarter of an inch, they didn't get it.
But that doesn't mean they called off part 2.
No, absolutely. I don't think so. And the way Trump, I admire the man's courage, but they're going to come for him again.
I don't disagree.
And we need to keep that man in prayers. That man and his family need to be in prayers.
Yeah. So this guy says there is now a very credible explanation emerging that says the Secret Service, on orders from the director and Mayorkas, placed a Secret Service team inside the building where the shooter was crawling on the roof, and that the actual shots targeting Trump may have been taken by people inside the building. This would be consistent with the audio forensic and the shooting recording, since the distance would be nearly identical to the rooftop shooter. This also explains why counter sniper teams held their fire until after the shooter killed Trump. Their job was to eliminate the patsy. Note that the Secret Service had eyes on the young man for at least 30 minutes, watching him with an actual rangefinder, scoping the range of the shot, then with a backpack, then scaling the ladder, going onto the roof. They watched him and reported on his progress. They did nothing to stop him. They did everything but load his rifle and pull the trigger. We need an immediate criminal investigation into the director and a hard look at the Secret Service counter snipers deployed that day. This stinks to high heaven. Note that the assassination of JFK, they also had a patsy, while a real shot was taken by a CIA-run sharpshooter, which is true with RFK as well, by the way. And again, it goes back to the patterns that we talk about. So let me also say, back on the subject of that company, Austin Private Wealth. If you look up that company, you're going to find that, as usual, you have the normal suspects of BlackRock, Vanguard, and George Soros as stock owners of that company that shorted the Trump. So that would be basically Israel making money off of the death of a president. Not like that's ever happened before. Not like with JFK or anything. So, which of course is exactly what happened with JFK. Go ahead.
There's a photo I was looking for. I can't find it. So if somebody in the chat has it, you want to find the link and drop it in the chat, just let me know. But it shows the FBI, or it might be the Secret Service, but they're on top of the roof and they're washing down the crime scene.
Yes. How about that? Isn't that weird?
It's absolutely weird.
You know, you do maid service too?
You know how many crime scenes I cleaned up in my career, Colonel? 0. We don't do that.
No, you don't.
There's actually
unless you're getting rid of evidence.
Unless you're getting rid of evidence. And here's the other thing. Why would you be in such a hurry to clean that? We've seen the cops go up there, and all that. Why are there no photos of the forensic team going up there? I mean, if you could take photos of the guy washing it off, why can't you take photos of the forensic team up there? But we don't clean roofs. It's the responsibility of the property owner. We don't even recommend to people. We'll just say, hey, here's a list of the companies that do it. You pick your own.
So if you look at the videos of them removing the fire chief that died, would you do that before you did the forensics? As far as bullet trajectory, that type of thing? You got a dead body there. Do you not just move the people away and allow the forensic coroner guy to show up and do the pictures? Because it's a crime scene.
Yeah. And we'll know when they pronounce death. But if he had a pulse, then I can understand them still moving him.
But right, absolutely. But they said he was dead.
Because the doctor guy says that, and this is graphic. I apologize, you guys, but it's part of this, unfolding what happened here. The doctor said parts of his brain were coming out.
Yeah, he's dead.
He's dead. And it's a doctor. It's not some regular person. It's a doctor, somebody who's actually qualified in making that kind of determination.
Yeah, the other 2 people still alive. They cart them off. Understandable, but not the dead body. The dead body now becomes part of the crime scene, and you need to take pictures. You do all of that stuff so that you can determine the trajectory of where he got shot from.
Absolutely. Because when they do his autopsy, and I know this because I've been to these autopsies, the autopsy is going to put these rods through the entrance room, the exit rooms. You take photos, you do all that stuff, and that's why it's so important to, when a person's dead, it's not about not caring about them, but it's being able to prove what happened to them, so they have justice, and that's why you don't move the freaking body.
But man, those cops were dead on it. I mean, they're like carrying him off before anything else is going on. I don't even think they had Trump completely off the stage, and they're gathering up that guy's body.
They did. So this is what I'll add to it, and then whatever you want to add to it, Colonel. And then there's a video that Trump posted on his YouTube today, so I'll play that as we exit. But I also want to play one other one just to kind of make a point. Maybe I won't. But it was short. Is, you guys, what they're telling us is obviously not the truth. You've heard my experience. You probably heard tons of my thoughts on this over the last few days. I will argue that I've been proven right in pretty much most of it. You've heard what the Colonel said. You heard Colonel's experience. You've heard the information that she's provided for us tonight to bring it up here. You guys see what's happening. Now, remember this. Once again, read General Flynn's information war. When we see something happen and they know we're close to the truth, they will flood the air with more information, lies, muddy the truth to create confusion. So just don't trust your discernment, and if something don't look right, look into it. And then by all means, you guys, research the plane, research the glass company, research the stocks, grab all the photos. Don't worry about, Alpha Prod already has this. I don't care. Send it to me anyways, because I'm trying to collect as many of these photos as I can, because we know what's going to happen over the next few weeks. They're all going to disappear. Like they're all going to be gone. All these things that are online, they're all going to be gone, and they're only going to leave the ones that they want to leave. So, but what I will say is at least two shooters. Like I'm convinced at least two, and maybe even a fail-safe third that could have been present. But at a minimum, there's two shooters here, especially when you look at the additional two victims and the way they were hit. So,
they never do it with one.
Nope.
I have looked at least 50 of these. They've never done it with one.
Let's see. Let me throw this up on here because I haven't heard this yet. Alpha Colonel, my question is, what hit the hydraulic cylinder on the JCB boom forklift? Was either the tube or output block that pierced and the oil spraying the line of sight? If you can send that to me, because I have yet to see that. I'm not familiar with that.
Yeah. So there was someone that talked about the red International Harvester tractor, that there were witnesses on the ground saying there were shots coming from there as well. But I did want to say this just kind of as a foot stomper. And this was posted on X by @Captain Coronado, obviously a Navy guy, that says, update, the firm that took the suspicious and enormous bet against President Trump's Truth Social stock one day before the assassination attempt is Austin Private Wealth LLC, majority held by George Soros's Vanguard and BlackRock. BlackRock, the party that would have greatly benefited from his death, included the shooter Thomas Matthew Crooks in his 2022 promotional video. I'm not saying it's BlackRock,
but
I'm not saying it.
So, but please, you guys, tens of thousands of people are going to watch this. You guys know my email, thealphawarriorshow @protonmail.com. Or if you follow me on X, drop it in my DM, send me the email. I do want to collect as much of this as possible because I want to do my own extended investigation into this over the next few weeks and few months.
And what I would like to say, Alpha, is I would like to get you, me, Brian Gamble, Brian Cates, War Hamster, and a couple of other people on a space to, like maybe next week sometime, towards the end of the week, and just kind of do an update. Since we've now put the marker down here where we've taken all of the information that we've collected thus far in relation to the Operation Gladio footprint that we've spent months outlining for everybody, to kind of bounce it off of everyone and their perspectives and whatever else is going to come out in the next several days. So I'm gonna,
Absolutely. I'm all for that.
yeah.
Absolutely all for that.
All right.
If,
I'll try to set that up.
if you guys have any specific questions, do us a solid. Leave them down in the comments, because the questions you guys put in the live chat disappears once the show is over, well, shortly thereafter. So if there's a specific question that we didn't address tonight to this show, leave it in the comments so we can look at it over the next few days. And then either in that space that the Colonel's talking about or sometime in the future, we can address it. More than likely, we'll probably be able to address it in that space, since that looks like the next time we'll be doing the roundtable for this. So other than that, that's all I got for this as of now, Colonel.
So what I want to just say is that the going back to the way we started the show, with the fact that you have an international syndicate that has at will moved chess pieces around the entire world at their discretion, eliminating heads of state, eliminating people, general officers, anyone that stood in their way. The hope that every one of us needs to walk away from this conversation with is they have spent the last 6 years trying to eliminate Donald Trump from the playing field, and the man is still standing. So I believe in the bottom of my heart that divine intervention has put Trump between us and the international syndicate. And I believe that it is glorious that whatever anointed him to do whatever he is doing is going to bring us through all of this in a way that we've never had this potential before. We have always been the victim of this group of international syndicate. And I think for the very first time, we are seeing in real time, and more importantly, that you're seeing all of the people that you would have never had unify as a group to get through this. And it is going to take that unification for us to get through this and through the next 4 years with the hard things that need to be accomplished and not have a civil war. So I don't like doing this, but you almost understand why it had to be this way. Because the only way to get through this is with all of us together.
I agree completely. And you did remind me of one more thing that I was like, thank goodness the Colonel shook up my brain housing group, because I would have been so mad 5 minutes after the show ended, and I would have been like, it would have been one of those moments. So RFK's team, some say his son, leaks the video recording of the conversation between RFK Jr. and President Trump. Have you had a chance to listen to that or watch that, Colonel?
Yeah.
Now, out of all that, there's a lot of stuff that's interesting, and there's some stuff I really love. But you guys got to remember, I spent my life interviewing people for crimes. So I don't just listen to what people say. I listen to how they say it, the tones they say it, what they don't say, omissions. Now, granted, this is secondhand because it's Trump's relaying of the conversation, but Trump is also a very brilliant man. He says, "Can you believe Biden?" The guy asked me, "How did you know to turn your head?" Listen, how did you know to turn your head? Now, from me, if I'm doing an interview with someone and I hear that statement, flags are going off everywhere to the point where I'll be like, "What was that? Like, can you repeat that?" That's not a natural statement to that kind of incident. Like what would be natural is, "Man, you're lucky you turned your head. Oh my gosh, if you wouldn't have turned your head. Oh, what? How did you know?" I'm sorry, but that sounds like implication. That sounds like awareness. Now, that's my speculation, but it comes from a lot of damn interviews. I'll say that, if Trump is translating the way that conversation took place, and I have no reason to think that he wasn't. So with that, Colonel, I don't have anything more. If you want to go for it, let's fire off. We can keep firing off.
Last thing, Victoria Nuland. You can't talk about the international syndicate without saying something about Victoria Nuland. So Liza sent a video that basically says, just before the Crocus City Hall attack, Victoria Nuland says Putin will get an unhappy surprise. Well, hold on. She says then that there is a nasty surprise waiting for Putin. And she says something about asymmetrical warfare being very effective, right? Like they're going to go after Putin. So there is a quote about this Trump thing. Quote, "Putin will get an unhappy surprise if he believes that Trump will be elected." Yeah. So I just reposted that, so it'll be on my page on X. But that kind of puts the stamp right there, because that woman is a Black Widow.
Oh, hell yeah, she is.
Yeah. So she spoke for the international syndicate. And that kind of seals the deal for me that it was absolutely a planned event. I absolutely agree with you. At least 2 shooters. And I honestly believe that that shot that missed Trump came from behind the 20-year-old, and they waited until they took the shot thinking Trump's dead. We shoot the kid. Nobody's going to know about the guy behind him. But once they shot the kid and he's dead and they miss Trump, they now can't shoot because the kid's dead, and you lose your lone gunman story.
That window's closed.
Yeah.
You guys, once more, send me the links, send me the photographs, flood my DMs or flood my emails with that. I'm going to play a video. Michael Corey had it on his X channel. It's from Trump. Trump put it on his YouTube channel earlier today. So we'll close out with that. Do me a solid, you guys. We run this content commercial free. So following that video, stick around for an extra minute or two and support the people that support this channel. Colonel, where can everybody find you so they can go and subscribe?
At Colonel Towner on X, at Colonel Watkins on True Social, the Colonel's Corner on Rumble and Substack.
There you have it. And if you're new to the show tonight, subscribe. It's free. And all the links down to find Colonel are down in the description for you guys. I will catch you guys Monday, Tuesdays, and Wednesdays, 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific. Thursdays, you can catch me on Badlands Sit Rep at 9 p.m. Eastern. Although tomorrow, we're kind of changing things up. There won't be a sit rep tomorrow because Trump will actually be giving his speech. So we'll be covering that somehow. I may be in that one or not, but just so you guys know, that's what's going on with that. So with that, I hope you guys enjoy this video. It's pretty freaking cool.
Trump's left the building.
We can now project the winner of the presidential race. Donald Trump wins the presidency. What started off as unlikely, impossible, is now reality.
I will fight for you with every breath in my body, and I will never, ever let you down.
We have a president who actually fulfilled the promises he made during the campaign, securing the border to foreign policy.
He now has a record as president that's pretty damn impressive. Breaking news out of Palm Beach,
The FBI has executed an unprecedented search warrant at President Donald Trump's Mar-a-Lago estate. The former president has both sides of the political aisle up in arms.
It is a dangerous and unstable moment in American history.
The Justice Department has just indicted former President Donald Trump.
For 7 years, they hated him, they targeted him, they hunted him.
This is the epitome of the abuse of the prosecutorial power to preempt political decisions.
I never thought anything like this could happen in America. The only crime that I have committed is to fearlessly defend our nation from those who seek to destroy it. The more that a broken system tells you that you're wrong, the more certain you should be that you must keep pushing ahead. They want to take away my freedom because I will never let them take away your freedom. They want to silence me because I will never let them silence you. They're not coming after me, they're coming after you, and I just happen to be standing in their way, and I will never be moving. On November 5th, 2024, justice will be done. We will take back our country, and we will make America great again. America will always rise to every challenge and overcome every danger.
Donald Trump seems to always get stronger when challenged. These types of things, I think, give him strength.
When I'm reelected, I will totally obliterate the deep state. As long as we have pride in our beliefs, courage in our convictions, and faith in our God, then we will not fail.